All right, so welcome to our weekly talk. It's a little bit later. Usually I do it in the morning, but didn't have a chance to. But today I'm going to talk about why taste is so important to achieving long-term health, right? Taste is so important, and the ability to master your taste is so important. And I want to talk about that because that's something when we're looking for health or we're looking for balance or whatever we want to call this, right? We can only control certain things. Right? We can't just make everything happen right as we want it to. We can only control certain things. And taste is one of those things that we can work on controlling. And controlling is the wrong word, but it's more about learning how to use and being more aware of what's going on with it. It's not suppressing and controlling it in that way. But I do want to talk about that. So that's what we're going to talk about. If you guys have any questions, let me know. But we'll get going with it. So when we talk about health, and I'm not even talking about specifically like weight loss or heart health or cholesterol or chronic disease or any of those things, right? Just health in general, right? We just want to feel good. I want to feel happy. I want to feel good, right? When we talk about that we're talking about a certain amount of balance in the system, okay? We're talking about a certain amount of balance in the system, and I've said this before, but our experience of life is based on our feelings, right? That's how we know what's going on. We feel things in our body, right? We feel things. We feel love. We feel hate. We feel anger. We feel stressed. We feel pain, right? We feel things. That's how we are experiencing this life, okay? We feel things. And so if we want to feel good or feel healthy, all those are just words that essentially mean a certain level of balance, right? Because feelings happen in the physical body. We know they're here because of the physical body, right? There's pain in the physical body. There's stress in the physical body. We feel these things in the physical body. And even though the mind can play roles and energy can play roles and things like that, you don't feel something in your mind. You feel it in the body. You notice the effects in the body. You know it's there because of what's happening in the body, right? And so we have to start looking at when we're talking about balance, right? When we're talking about health or we're feeling healthy, right? We're talking about balance, okay? And so specifically when we talk about or look at health in the physical body, okay? Health in the physical body or balance in the physical body, you have to look at food. There's no other way around it. You have to be able to clearly see food for what it is and its connection with the body. I'm sorry, you cannot exercise your way to health. Exercising is wonderful. I'm not saying it's not a part of it. It is part of it. You cannot exercise your way through a poor diet. You cannot exercise your way through eating bad food. You can't. Your physical body might look a certain way for a relatively short period of time, but I promise you, if you're looking at long-term health and long-term wellness, you will not exercise your way through a poor diet. You will run out of energy as you get older and older and older and older. It just won't work. You'll run out. So what does that mean? It means we have to honestly look at health or look at food. You have to clearly look at food and its impact on the physical body, right? The body's made of food. That's why the body is what it is, right? When you eat food, the body is a system that turns food into body. You eat a banana, it turns into you. I eat the same banana, it turns into me. The body turns food into human body. The body is made of food, okay? So the connection between food and the body is huge, right? Now we know this, like this isn't rocket science. People know that what they eat impacts their health. People know this. That's not the problem. It's not the problem. The problem is being able to find a way to know and to actively eat the food that your body needs to be healthy or to be balanced. Everybody's system is different. One person can eat an apple and it can do wonderful things in their system. Another person can eat an apple and it can aggravate their system. Same apple, same healthy apple, can have two different impacts on a person, depending on their system, okay? So we have to look at food differently, a little bit differently. We already know food has an impact. We already know that food has a big impact on our system. We already know that the vast majority of chronic diseases that people are experiencing are due to overconsumption and the types of food they're eating. We already know these things. So this isn't new. Okay? But if we already know this and problems still aren't getting fixed, you have to look differently. We have to try to look for different solutions to the problem, right? And so what I want to talk about specifically is if food is such an impact, food plays such a crucial role and has such a huge impact on the health of our physical body, how are we determining what food goes into the body? Because that's where the rubber meets the road, right? That's ultimately where the decision gets made. You can understand whatever you want to understand about food. You can think you know all this stuff about food and what's healthy and what's not healthy and what's good for you and not good for you and how this affects your system, how this doesn't affect your system. The only thing that matters to your body is what goes in your body, not what you think about it. Doesn't matter what you think about it. Doesn't matter what you think about the food. What matters is what goes in. The body has to deal with what goes in. The body doesn't have to deal with what you're thinking about the food. On a certain level it does, but we're not going to talk about that. Those are finer levels of things. So, what impacts what goes in the mouth? If that's the decision point, right? If that's the decision point, if that's the point where, we know food impacts our body, and what we actually put in our mouth, regardless of what we know, what we actually put in our mouth, that's what has the most impact. What determines what goes in our mouth? What determines what we eat? One of the biggest factors, if not the biggest determining factor in what you decide to put in your mouth or put in your body to eat is your taste. How you think things taste. How food tastes to you. That is the biggest determining factor. Not how healthy it is, not what nutrients are in it, not any of that. The biggest determining factor is how it tastes. For most people, for the vast majority of people, it's how food tastes. Okay, and there's something that's going on here with taste. Okay, that the whole point of this talk right here is I want to bring this to your awareness so you can start looking at taste differently. Okay, and that's what's going to help. That's what's going to help this decision-making process of starting to be able to see food differently, right? It's taste. So the biggest misconception that people have about taste is that taste is good or bad. People think things taste good or bad. When you ask somebody, how'd that taste? Oh, it was good. How'd that taste? Oh, it was bad. I didn't like it. Right? So unfortunately, I got to break the news to you. Unfortunately, good and bad are not tastes. They're not. Good and bad are not tastes. They're your own perception of something. Have nothing to do with taste. Okay? There's 6 fundamental tastes. Okay? And I'm going to talk about what taste is briefly. But there's 6 fundamental tastes. There's sweet, salty, sour, bitter, pungent, and astringent. There's 6 fundamental tastes. Objective of what you think, right? They're objective tastes. They are not what you think something tastes good or bad. They are what they are. Okay? And so the first step into really starting to understand and be able to use taste and master your taste so that you become the master of your own health is understanding, one, that taste is not good or bad. That's the biggest thing, okay? Stop looking at taste as good or bad and start looking at taste, the taste within food for what it is, okay? Because good or bad, if something tastes good or bad, it's the same, it's comparison, you guys. It's the comparing aspect of life. And when you start comparing things, whether you're comparing food, whether you're comparing taste, whether you're comparing yourself to others, whether you're comparing your success to others, whatever that may be, comparison never works out very well. Comparison's always black and white. right? Comparison does not work out because it doesn't give you an accurate depiction of what's actually happening within you. It's not focusing on what's happening within you. So that's like good or bad, right? One person can eat a meal and they can say it tastes good. Another person can eat the same meal and they can say it tastes bad. Right? This is making sense. Good and bad are not tastes. They're perceptions of things. And perceptions, or how we think about things, or how we are making sense of things coming into us, that can be changed by a lot of different factors. For example, I'll show you how your perception of good and bad of food can be altered, right? If you haven't eaten food in 3 days, whatever somebody puts on your plate is going to taste good. It's going to taste like the best thing ever. Right? Regardless of what your own previous experiences of it are. If you haven't eaten for 3 days, that thing is going to taste wonderful. Okay? The same holds true if you, let's take your favorite dish, right? Say your favorite food is pancakes. And if you had to eat pancakes every meal of the day, every day of the week, all the way, say, for a year, if you had to eat nothing but pancakes, at some point in your experience, that food, those pancakes that at one point you thought were so wonderful, are not going to be so wonderful anymore. Nothing has changed with the pancakes. You have to realize this. Nothing is changing with the food. It has nothing to do with the food. It has everything to do with your perception of it. And your perception is based on, we've talked about this before, your perception is based on your memories and your past experiences of things. And it gets altered and changed, okay? And I don't want to go down that road right now. I don't want to go down that road. But again, the first thing that you have to recognize is that good and bad are not tastes. Those are perceptions of things. Let's start to look at taste, what taste actually really is, without getting too crazy with it, right? Too chemistry-y with it. Let's look at taste, what's actually happening, and what's going on with your body and your mind with that. And so you can start to use it, okay? So taste is, it happens primarily on your tongue, but it actually technically happens all throughout the body. Smells in your stomach, in your just the way you look at food, and taste is happening in a lot of different dimensions, a lot of different levels. But primarily it happens on the tongue, right? It happens on the tongue with taste buds, okay? So taste is what we're calling your body's ability to interact, right, with food, where it will just, an external chemical, an external thing. And in this case, it's food, right? We know that food is a chemical, like an apple is a chemical. It's got chemicals in it. Not chemicals in a bad way, chemicals in a foundational way, that everything has chemistry to it. It's made up of carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, water. Like it's this chemical basis to it. Taste is your tongue's ability to perceive that, to actually receive the chemicals from food and transform that chemical into a source of information, okay, for your brain, so that your brain knows what's going on, right? So taste happens on the tongue. Different foods have different tastes. Why? Because different foods are different. Different food. An apple is different from a piece of kale. They're going to taste different because they're different, because they have different chemistry. They are made differently. They have different amounts and different types of chemicals within them. A pear is different than an orange. Tastes different because it has different chemicals, right? So I want you to look at it like this. With this body being like a house, like we've talked about before, okay? This body's like a house. And you have these construction and maintenance workers inside your house, and they're the only ones that know what you need on a chemical level in the body, whether it's amino acids for protein, whether it's, whether it needs water, whatever it needs, whatever the body needs in a chemical form, whatever it needs. Okay, the construction workers here within the body, they're the ones that know it, because they're the ones that are on ground level. They're the ones that are doing the work, right? So when something breaks or something needs repaired in the body sends signals. Okay? It sends signals because the body needs materials. The body needs materials in the form of food to rebuild what's breaking and what needs repaired inside the system. Okay? the body has to get that somehow. How do we get it? We eat it, right? Well, how do we eat it? Well, you actually have to go figure out, like the brain has to be involved, and you got to pick food out and you got to put it in your mouth and chew it up, and then the body can get it, right? The body just can't suck it up. Can't suck it up through the outside, right? You have to put it in, okay? So there's processes for this, right? So then your body is saying, okay, hey, I need these list of chemicals. The body only speaks in chemicals. The body only knows chemicals. The body doesn't know steak. The body doesn't know potatoes. The body doesn't know soda. That's not what the body knows. The body knows chemicals, okay? So the body says, okay, I need these chemicals. I need this list of materials to do all of my work today, to fix all of my things that I need to fix today, right? So the body says, okay, brain, here's the list of chemicals. Here's the stuff that I need, okay? So it gives it to the brain. Now the brain has to play a role in this too. And the brain's role, right, is to decide what food actually goes in the body. But there's a problem here. There's a problem that causes a lot of issues in terms of eating. We don't think in terms of chemicals. We don't go out and say, hey, I need to get a little carbon in my system. I need to get some amino acids in my system. I need to get some, whatever chemicals in my system. We think in terms of food. Food's a package, right? So the brain gets this list of chemicals from the body, and then the brain has to translate that. The brain has to say, okay, I got this list, and we can call those cravings if you want to call them cravings, right? The body sends these chemical sensations, cravings, right? These list of chemicals that it needs. And your brain now has to take that list, and match it up with actual food. Has to match it up with actual food. So there's this like matching thing that has to go on, right? And that involves your memory. Your brain has to go back and say, okay, here's all the chemicals that I need, that the body needs. What kinds of foods have these chemicals in them? Okay, and the only way you know is because you start to search your memory. What have you eaten before? If you've never eaten something before, how on earth are you supposed to know that is even an option to eat? You don't. What you know is what you've eaten before. Okay, or maybe you can read it or something like that. But for the most part, we're talking about when the brain is thinking about what food to eat. It's based on what you've eaten before. So the brain has to translate those chemicals into food that you've eaten before so that you can actually go out and find the food and then eat the food. That's how that works, right? You find the food, you eat the food, and then the body, in a perfect world, would get the chemicals or the materials it needs to create health, to repair, to build, to do all that stuff, right? The problem is in the translation, if we want to call it that, in the brain's ability to understand what the body is telling it. In the brain's ability to associate food with chemicals. Chemicals, food, and the brain's ability to associate those things together and get actually what's needed for the body, that's where all of the jumbling up comes. Okay? Right? So let me give you an example, and I'll talk about how taste plays into this. So when the body actually goes, so when the brain is like, okay, here's the list of chemicals. Okay, here's the food I need. Now, what happens is then the brain goes and you find the food, right? In order for the brain to know if that's the right food or not, there has to be a check, right? There has to be some kind of check in place to know if that apple, is that really what I need, right? And so when you put it in your mouth, you taste it. And taste is the direct link to chemicals. Your tongue is tasting the chemicals. Okay? The chemicals in the food, your tongue is receiving those. That's taste. So that's the link. Then your tongue tastes it, sends that taste to the brain, and the brain's like, oh, okay, that's right. Those are the chemicals. Those are the chemicals I needed. All right, this is good. Let's keep doing it. Right? In general, that's how the process works. But the problem where the things get jumbled up, right? Where the misconceptions happen and where the mess ups happen is in the brain's ability to link the chemicals. In one aspect of it, there's a couple ways that this could go wrong, but in one aspect of it, it's the brain's ability to link the chemicals that the body needs with actual food, right? So for example, your body needs a certain chemical, a certain building chemical, right? It needs a building quality chemical. Sweet taste, the taste of sweet, in nature, the qualities of sweet taste are building, okay? They're building in nature, they build, okay? And so if the body needs something building, needs to rebuild something, let's say it comes up with a craving, it needs sweet, right? So it tells the brain it needs sweet, okay? The body doesn't need a cupcake. The body needs sweet, the chemical sweet, okay? The chemical that is associated with the sweet taste. So the sweet craving comes. Well, the brain says, okay, what's sweet? What's sweet? And not only what is sweet, but what have I eaten in the past that has been a pleasant experience for me, right? So then the brain's like, okay, I've eaten cupcakes before, and they were wonderful. I perceived them as good tasting, right? Let's eat some cupcakes. All right, boom, boom, boom. You shovel a bunch of cupcakes in, okay? And then once the cupcakes go in, your body has to deal with the chemicals in the cupcakes, and your body's like, hey, this is not what I need. This is not the sweet I need, right? It's not the sweet. This is not going to work. These materials are not going to work to rebuild this system. I'm going to have to do something with the materials now. I'm going to put them in the trash pile. They're not what I need. They're not going to fix it, but I have to do something with them, so I'm going to try to get rid of what I can get rid of, and everything else I'm going to put in the trash pile. I'm going to store it over there for later, okay? And then your body's going to send another sweet craving because the body didn't get what it needed the first time, okay? And you have to understand that when we talk about taste and actually the taste on the tongue, the sweet, the sour, the salty, the bitter, astringent, pungent, like that, sweet isn't just related to like highly processed food and candy. Grains are sweet. Meat is sweet. Most animal products, milks, butters are sweet, okay? There's certain tastes that are associated with this, and those things take a little bit of learning, which is why I do the Awakening Your Taste class, to tell you more about the individual foods and the taste that they have, because a lot of foods have multiple tastes to them, and they do certain things to your body. But ultimately, what we're talking about here is if food has such a huge impact on your body, the health of your body, okay, mastering your taste or your ability to stop looking at food in terms of good or bad and being able to recognize what tastes food actually have and see how those tastes are impacting the body. Because out of the 6 tastes, when people talk about eating healthy is getting a variety, right? People say that, getting a variety. What variety really means is a variety of tastes. We have to understand this, you guys. The body doesn't care about food in terms of how we see it with our mind. The body doesn't even know what an apple is. The body doesn't know what pie is. The body doesn't know what a turkey is. The body doesn't know what a cheeseburger is. The mind knows that. We've associated that chemical package with that. The body doesn't know that. The body knows chemicals, right? That's why we have to digest. The body has to digest the food all the way down to the chemicals for the body to be able to use it. Okay, it's like this. It's like, let's say a construction worker, right? Somebody's in your house and they need to fix a little bit of trim, like around the door, right? Tiny little piece of wood, maybe, right, that goes around the door. They don't need a tree. Okay, if you give that worker a tree, what's he gonna do with a tree? A tree does include the material needed to make the trim around the door. There's wood in there, right? But he doesn't need the raw material in the form of a tree, right? That's why the tree has to get processed in a bunch of different ways in order for that final finished material to be able to be used for the particular purpose. Okay, the only difference here is that the body is all of those processing plants, right? You put the raw material in the form of food, right? You put that in, and the body has to process it all the way down to its final pieces so that it can actually be used for specific purposes, right? Which means also when your body's doing all those processing things, those processing of actions, that means it has to deal with all the waste material as well. And that's another aspect of this is your body doesn't know food. It doesn't know what food is in terms of the names of food that we're calling it, right? It doesn't know that. It doesn't care, right? But what it does know is the chemicals within the food. It has to deal with every single chemical, every single one. That's why when we play this game of, when the mind gets involved and plays this game of, oh, I think I need protein. Oh, there's a cookie at the store, a big giant cookie that says protein cookie. Highly processed, got a bunch of stuff in it. But it says protein on it, and my mind says I need protein, so I'm going to eat that protein cookie. Your mind is satisfied. Your mind is like, yes, I got my protein. The body now has to deal with every single chemical that is in that cookie, okay? Which it will need some of them, and it won't need others. And depending on how many unnecessary materials are piled in that raw material food package, okay, those unnecessary materials have something. They don't just disappear in the body. They don't just disappear. The body has to, they're waste products, and the body has to get rid of them, or the body has to do something with them, okay? So there's no free lunch here, right? Everything is recognized in the body. Everything has to be dealt with, all right? So that is why when you start looking at taste and we start being able to master your taste, all that means is you can start to say, okay, I'm going to eat this piece of food, and I'm going to sit here, and as I'm eating it and as I'm chewing it slowly, I'm going to try to recognize the taste. Is it sweet? Is it salty? Is it sour? Is it bitter? Is it astringent? Is it pungent, right? What taste am I actually tasting? When you start doing that, and you stop saying, oh, this is so good, this is so good, oh, this is bad, this is bad. When you start trying to taste the actual tastes of it, there's no good and bad, and you can appreciate the food for what it is, which allows you now, because one of the biggest problems of people eating healthy is their mind says, I don't like the taste of healthy food. Healthy food doesn't taste good. And there's a fundamental flaw with that. There's a fundamental flaw because taste is not good or bad. You can taste anything and you can appreciate and say, this is what it tastes like. Right? This is what it tastes like. It doesn't have to taste good or bad. This tastes bitter. And this is what bitter tastes like. And if you can start to see food like that, and if you can start to address food like that, and if you can start to have a perspective of food like that, your doors will open to what you are able to eat. And you will stop being so rigid in what tastes good, because what tastes good is based on your past experiences of food. Okay? And so that will broaden, and you will be willing to open your doors to trying all kinds of different foods, and you can appreciate the taste of them for what they are. That's like appreciating a person for who they are. Okay? And not judging them based on where they work, what they look like, things like that. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's it. We're about to wrap up. But it's important. It's important only if you really want to have mastery over your health, control and mastery over it. You got to look at your tastes. You got to look at your taste, because your tastes and your ability to taste food is directly connected with your ability to give the body what it needs, because the body needs chemicals, and tastes are chemical in nature. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense, you guys. Again, the last thing just to walk away with, if you forget everything here, if you can walk away with something and you can start practicing something in your everyday life, start to try to practice not, when you're eating something, don't do your best to not just say it's good or bad. You can still say that, whatever, it doesn't matter. But try to appreciate and try to identify the actual tastes in the food. Does it taste sweet? Does it taste salty? Does it taste sour? Does it taste astringent, bitter, pungent? Even if you don't know what some of those are, that's okay. Do your best to taste what it actually tastes like, and just appreciate it for what it is. Okay? Thank you guys very much. Have a wonderful day.